while I await tests, results. Most are sent back to the accustomed, and after 4 hours, I grow jealous of their release, remember the comfort of home, my own bed. At midnight, Dr. Hernandez breaks the fabric wall, comes close to speak into my eyes. Blood clots in both lungs, names the pain, tells me where I will sleep tonight. The poems from this point on were written in the hospital. They were, as Peggy said, they were polished a lot after I wrote them, but they had their origins in the hospital because that's where I was. Then I was finally released and came home, and these last two poems that I'll read from the book are about being at home after those 12 days in the hospital. It so happens that Mars was nearer to Earth than it had been ever, I think, in the history of the world that summer. And this is called The Nearness of Mars. The fence ringing my backyard has been a challenging distance this summer, marking a vacuum too great to cross. Yet we gather into darkness by this board and nail that marks what is mine. Our arms ivy the gate as we raise our chins, focus our instrument into the stars. We search the inconceivable distance for a ball sailing in ancient orbit, a red land closer tonight than human eye has seen. The loop of stone through space thrusts the rusted face into our lens, and I peer past cloud as if viewing a neighbor's lawn. We take our turns saying, oh, unable to word the stunning, moving away from the scope with the common glisten, our thought light years from fence and grass. Tonight I cross a span, leaping the incomprehensible distance, vaulted by the flawless focus of lens. And I remember drawing the surface of the planets in elementary school, the imagined mountains erupting from the Crayola box. The backyard fence becomes an achievable distance as I mull the way to galaxies. And I'm reminded once again that some journeys are not measured by the length of a stride, but by the width of an imagination. And the final poem that I'll read from this book is called September 11th, 2003. After the paper, I put on my glasses, watch the backyard slip into shadow. A front rises, spills clouds that block light. They roil across the sky, envelop the sun, remind me of the swallowing dust of towers' vertical glissade. But this morning's cloud is wet, full of all the promise that rain implies, and by noon the ground will swirl with leaf and stream. Afraid of slipping, I won't venture near the puddles beneath the patio canopy. Will leave crutches leaning on the counter. I will watch the downpour feeling more vulnerable than I have ever felt. Once I was invincible, saw myself in the stories of survivors, read of the Holocaust, the Donner Party, the Titanic. They came to life, and I saw my own in the hollow eyes that lived to a second beginning. But events have broken the shell of armor, have spilled us like a basket of eggs, and suddenly shelter is futile, no place safe. My small crisis of bone brings the caution of wet tile, concern for the certainty of gravity, reveals the cringe of possibility. And we all face a collective fear, aware at last of the warp of conscience, believers who bend God to vengeance. So we live in new ways, search the face of fellow traveler, memorize exits and stairways, plan our routes, avoid congregation. Yet we live yearning for step, the chance to run, the empowerment of our own strength. We move toward our next hour with the unspoken always there, roiling like tower dust in our thought. The book Harvest started in 1994, and it was really not completed until into probably 2002 or 3 or something like that. I was constantly adding to it. It was really wrought from an enormous amount of work and crafting, and it all began with the poem Corn. And when I wrote this poem, I started to see where it was going, that this was going to be the story of this man's life, and it is. And this was the first poem, and is the first poem in the book. Corn. Here the heart rises to the fault of green that moves from my foot to the edge of sky, a line as straight as could be planted, too perfect for this mortal eye. Each shoot in flawless mirror of the other learns the random rhythm of the wind and tempers to the power of seed. All that could be paradise is here in this beginning, and like the first Eden, all growing holds a promise. Yet there is reaping now, before the ear and tassel, before the silk and shuck. I gather morning air and emerald blade and turn the harvest into memory. The furrows lie in flawless line and deep, too deep to ever fill with snow. Many of the poems in this story stand alone and were winners in individual contests as poems without being in the context of the book. And I really tried to write all the poems that way so that they could stand alone, because then I could enter them in the contest and they were still a coherent part of the manuscript. And eventually about half of these poems were published before the book was published because they won contests. And this was probably one of the first poems to win a contest, and it's called Wolves, and it's one of my favorite children. The dogs grow silent, shadow under eaves, suppress the primal urge to run yelping toward the wild that only blood remembers. There is a pack near tonight, beyond the trees that edge the northern fields. They are hungry for the things that matter to them, and they are haunting me in their worship of the moon. I know the place they walk, understand the desperation of the hunt, hear the weariness in their call. They will not come too near tonight, not yet, not until hunger drives them here. And in that hour so inevitable, I will not draw away from the mirror of terrored eyes, will not tender heart and turn, but will fire above their ears, hoping to turn their hunger with fear. I will give them honor, a chance, and I pray they will not demand death. I believe, Leona, you may have placed this poem, Neon, in your contest one time, and I always liked it, but it just never really appealed to a judge enough to win first place. Neon. It was like no earthly thing, that green, and my eyes, small with innocence, could not speak the place inside me that curled and stretched its recognition of the glow. It is my first clear memory of childhood, that green against the black sky, that color that had no match in a world of trees and grass and mossy streams. It was a green to which I felt connected, my heart drifting leaf-like, my stomach budding. And I could sleep when I imagined it, could cool on summer nights if the memory was right. I do not remember more of that first journey to the world except that green. But it can streak to conscious eye like sparks of steel, and I am touched by the bolt of its mystic fire. Another poem that I always liked, and I don't believe it ever won either. It placed many, many times, but it never won, and it's called Geese. They scrawl the sky with the consonant of their unison, calling in ancient voice the journey to this hour. And I am summoned upward from the work to watch and hear and celebrate the flight. The message penned by wing is read below, and I am chilled by coming cold. The quiver of spine rehearses winter, but more, this tremble is for things more awesome than snow and wind. In this unblemished letter, I find connection to that which lives, the long-forgotten stitch of dependence that holds us whole. The feather is closed in horizon, and I descend to the stroke of soil to find a waft of down. And in the season of age, the V of their flight will write the ceaseless call of the season, will spell the ache that drives the creature that always will. And of course, I always have to read a dog poem. This, like all of this book, this dog became absolutely real. And when I read it, this dog is real, even though she is a made-up figment of this world that I created in Harvest. And it's called Kali. She is the shadow pulled by my heel, turning in my circles, tracing the lines of my movement, the print of step. Patient in my absence, she guards the gate, knows the engine as my heartbeat, and runs to my return. She has learned every hour, the rise and move of our day, the chore and rest, the cycle of this life. And I could neglect this devotion, but I do not. I share with her the coil of day, the darkness that draws me on, share my bread beneath the trees, the blanket of my hand, the rug of bedside. She rises with my lid and wearies herself in the bliss of my toil, and without senses, I know she is there, beneath the table, beyond the gate, in the dark, alert to my breath, ready to follow my move, her heart leaping at my call. "50. I stitched the hem of the land, looking for changes of tree and terrain, for a sign to shout from the rocks. Unclaimed by sleep, I walk the dawn, unable to find the mark of progression on any familiar plane. Today, I looked beyond this milestone, wondering at brevity. seeking any evidence that speaks my name, looking for my own in the face of the field. Yesterday, my first half-century finished. I left the work and moved to the harder plowing, the search for my notch in these acres, any record that I was here. I could not leave the pursuit for food or rest and found myself unresolved in first light. It is time to return to the unfinished. I know it will be a good day, full of the sky and turning a complete arc of the sun. In evening light, I will rise the hill, weary beyond my desire, to find the burn of candles and faces in the light, shining a witness. And this is the poem Solomon, which was the bronze medal winner at the 1996 Olympics, that appeared in the book done by the Georgia Poetry Society, who presented the award at the Olympics, and it's called Solomon. It's kind of a culmination of this man's life. It comes right before the final poem in the book. It did not come as sunrise, but as the light of stars, the slow progression of new fire in the darkness. I wished a lifetime for wisdom, and it grew like my fields, day on day, until it stood beyond denial, fully formed. I cherished all I had come to know, the answers of the wolf and corn, the lessons of the snake and snow, the voice of the seed and stone. And in the leavings and losings that I lived, I knew blessing beyond all measure, found myself at last free from fear. Now the best remains, and I rise to the blue before dawn, percussion, my part of the symphony, my heart beating the rhythm of creation. And the final poem in the book is the title poem, Harvest. There will be gleaning when earth turns its last turn for me. I will come to the harvest full of the yellow star that has ruled my kingdom. And if wish comes real as light, then every leaf will bow in tempering wind, and seed will sing the resurrection of rain. The world will be the holy place of my service, and root will seek the sustenance of my flesh. I will gather in going every touch of rain and germ of fruit, every warmth of sun and blessing of shade, all treasures that call splendor to the fields, each wonder that dressed me in the emerald of spring. All will bear witness of a reverent life. And when at last the frost has closed my lid, then sky will chorus under limb's baton, and earth will swallow up that which remains, to melt my blood and bone into her heart. Thank you.